Hi everybody, it is, I've got to check, it's Saturday, August 4th, 2018, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Neurotic Knitter podcast. My name is Drew, I am the Neurotic Knitter, clearly for those of you who know me, and I'm so glad to be with you guys. It's been way too long. The last time I recorded a podcast, I think it was the end of June, and I was reporting live from Nashville at Bliss Yarns with my good friends Heather and Gina. It's been a little bit of a crazy month, so July just flew past. Had the 4th of July, didn't really do anything of note on the 4th of July. Actually, before I get into all of that, let me outline today's podcast, because I've gotten some feedback about the format, and I'm going to try to keep it relatively brief, and I'm going to give you a sense of what's coming to start. So rewind, although we won't edit that out. Today's podcast, I'm going to give just a few life updates. I'm going to try to keep that relatively brief, probably 5 to 7 minutes. So if you want to just like scoot past like minute maybe 10, because I know I always go over, then feel free to do that. Otherwise, please stay tuned for the life updates because I love to share, and I want to let you guys know what's going on. So a couple of things just to start. First of all, thank you for the continued support. And if you're just joining, I'm at Drew in Real Life, all one word, on Instagram. I'm Drew Jacobs 83 on Ravelry. So if you want to follow me on those channels, which are probably the two most reliable, Instagram's really like my favorite one. So that's a good place to follow me. You can follow me there. And I'm Drew in Real Life, I think, on YouTube, but I always will post links and different things to help you access the podcast. And it's a great time to catch up. I can't believe that this is episode 6. It's crazy. When I started doing this, I think it was maybe in May, I didn't really know where it would head. And I'm still not really sure where it will head. I'm not like, you know, Grocery Girls level, like a zillion viewers. Like, I've seen like a steady decline, actually. I'm kind of like, should I keep doing this? Should I not? I enjoy doing it, so I'm going to keep doing it. Even if it's just a couple people who follow, that's cool with me. And maybe even it's just something for me to like remember when I was a young-ish knitter back in the day. Okay, so back to catching up. So July was crazy, just work-wise crazy, and just, you know, living life. And one of the things that we did is we went on our summer vacation. Every year we take about a week, and we generally go somewhere with mountains in the summer. We're like beach in the winter people, summer in the mountains people. And so we usually go one of two places, either Colorado, Boulder in particular, or Portland, Oregon. This year we went to Portland. It was phenomenal. It's funny because I've always thought Portland is a really cool place. And when I told people this time around that I was going there on vacation, people were like, why Portland? Like, why would you go there? Like, not in a bad way. I think they were just like more confused. Like, why aren't you going to Mexico? Or why aren't you going to like Alaska? Or I don't know, somewhere more noteworthy. And I'm actually cool with like people not really knowing about Portland. It's awesome. Like, if you ever want to have a place like that really epitomizes like having like a vibe, Portland has like a vibe, and it's a good vibe. Like, very creative, not as crazy busy as Seattle, but kind of still all of the fun Pacific Northwest scenery that you would get in Seattle. And it's just great. And every time we go, we stay in an Airbnb. This time we stayed in one that was like Mad Men inspired. It was super cool. It's probably my best Airbnb experience ever. But Portland's filled with that kind of stuff, like funky little restaurants, great Airbnbs, great coffee shops. There's like 25 yarn stores. So, quick highlights from Portland. One, we did 2 amazing hikes. We did one at the coast. It was called Heart's Cove. I posted some really cool pictures on Instagram if you're interested. It was challenging, but not that bad. Like it pushed me to the edge of what my comfort was. It was about 6 miles, but it was still really great. And then the second one was at Mount Hood, and it was just probably, I could probably safely say, like top 5 hikes of my life. You hiked up like a mile, and then all of a sudden, like, there was Mount Hood. It was just breathtaking, really fun, and really not that difficult. So like big payoff for like little effort. So we did that. I did a bunch of yarn related things, not a ton though. I was really like, I felt like I was like well behaved this time, because generally when I go to Portland, I'm like, I want to see every yarn store ever. And I don't really need to be buying a ton more yarn, though I did, but I trying to like keep it cool, keep it classy, keep it, you know, not so crazy, spend $1 zillion all the time. But anyway, I went to the Naughty Lamb. It is a yarn store that's in Forest Grove, Oregon, which is about 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour, depending on how you drive, west of Portland proper. It's worth it. You should go. They have an amazing selection of indie dyers. I don't know that I've seen a store that has had such a wide range of things that I was not familiar with and was really excited about. One of the things that I got there, so I'm going to show you a little bit of yarn in my life update, so hopefully this will keep people interested. But so I bought this House of Alamode, who I'm obsessed with. She's from Portland, actually. And this is called Glitter Beach Bum. And this is the Tweed DK. So you can't really, I don't know if you can see it, but it has little flecks of Donegal Nep in it. And so this is like a kind of a colorful, speckly, but tweed skein. And I needed something to go with it because I'm going to try to make a Guthrie sweater, which I'll talk a little bit more about later in the podcast, for Mike. And so I got this beautiful, like, I don't know if you call it, like, it's like a coffee brown. I wanted something really neutral that would kind of tone down the brightness of the other one. And they're both tweed. This colorway is called Moto. It's really beautiful brown. Like, I'm not really a huge brown guy, like brown proper. I really like autumn colors, but brown is probably like my least favorite. But I was super pumped. So got that at the Naughty Lamb. Sorry, I've got like piles as usual. One of the other things I did while I was in Portland is I got to see my friend Amber Zancoli. She's awesome. She's one of my plucky friends and like actually in real life friends now. And she took me to like a really cool little breakfast joint called Jam. It's on Hawthorne, and Hawthorne's kind of like a fun little funky strip in Portland. So that was really great. Got to just like, we talked for like almost 3 hours. Poor Amber had to be subjected to like my like life updates from Drew over breakfast. I actually feel like that's probably not so bad, but anyway. Sorry, coffee. Oh, I should turn for product placement. I do feel like craft today. I always feel like craft, like every day. It's unusual if I don't feel like craft. Shelly can. Love her, as I've mentioned, podcast after podcast. I'm actually drinking coffee that we got in Portland. I'm a big coffee drinker. Portland has like all of these amazing little roasteries. And so there's this one that was close to where we stayed called Extracto, which is kind of cute. And the logo is like a little coffee bean, like in like a vice grip getting squeezed. Anyway, so I got to see Amber. I went to, so last summer when we went to Portland again, last summer as well, and I got my first tattoo there, which was this orange Pat Austin English Rose. And I wanted to kind of add on to it a little bit. Sorry, it's hard to see. But so I went back to the same tattoo artist and got 3 additional roses, a really dark and dramatic one that's kind of like a maroon one. I've got another orange one, but it's a little lighter. It's got more yellow in it. And I got a pinky one. I know this is really hard to see, and I don't really know how much people care about my tattoos. But anyway, it was nice. The woman I see there, her name is Courtney Castaman. She's really talented. She does a lot of really beautiful botanical tattoos, like flowers and roses and stuff. And I just like her style. And she's just like really fun to hang out with, because when you get a tattoo, you're stuck in that chair for a long time and somebody's like needling you, and so you want it to be like somebody you want to chat with, and so she's really cool, and it was fun to catch up with her. She's a big hiker too, so that was a lot of fun. A couple other things that we did. I know I'm like over my time, of course, per usual. I said 10 minutes and now we're at like 11, but sorry, do what I want. We also went to Seattle. So that was really fun. We got a great deal on a really like luxurious hotel. One thing you should know about me is I'm really good at travel deals. It's like a sport for me. Like, I just love the thrill of the hunt. And even when I make like travel plans, like now, I am always obsessed with like getting like the best possible vacation for like the lowest price. So anyway, we waited and waited and waited, and Mike's like, I don't know, how is this gonna work out? And I'm like, don't worry, do not question my tactics. We will find a great place, and we did. So anyway, it was right on the water. We did Seattle. We kind of kept it really brief. We just did one overnight. We went to Bainbridge Island, which was really fun. We got to visit Church Mouse. It was hotter than Hades. Like, I got like a sunburn. It was still very hot there. The difference is unlike here, where it doesn't get cool at night. It just basically stays like 70 or 75. In the Northwest, it like goes down to 50 and then escalates back up. So you have these moments of like relief. But yeah, it was really fun. Vacation, it was like, I hiked like crazy. I probably got more exercise in 1 week than I do like all year. But it was really nice to just unplug. I was I was pretty good about staying off of email for work, and I think I needed it. Things have just been really busy at work, and I just needed to like really unplug and recharge and like be with my partner and just like have some personal time. So that's what's been going on with me. The next few months are gonna be bananas. Bananas. Like crazy. I think I have something like 8 or 9 trips. It could even be 10. Between now and the end of the year, which for some people that may not be for a lot, but for like little introverted Drew who's like sensitive and needs recharge time, it's gonna be a lot for me. I'm going to New Jersey the middle of this month. I'm actually really excited about that because I get to see some coworkers that I really like in New Jersey, just be right outside of New York City. And I'm going 1 day early, and I'm gonna have a very like short amount of time, but I'm gonna go and I'm gonna visit Do You Knit, Karen Posniak's shop. I'm sure a lot of you follow her on Instagram. I've heard story upon story about, 1, how awesome Karen is, but 2, the amazingness that is her store. And I'm excited to finally get to visit it. Karen and I have just chatted a couple times over Instagram. She's super sweet. And I hope I get yarn pimped. That's like a Karen term. I think it means that she's gonna like find some fabulous yarn for me to buy, and I'm not really opposed to that. So anyway, I'm gonna do that. And then at the end of the month, Mike and I are gonna go and take a little mini road trip to Nashville. We do that a lot since Nashville is like within driving distance for us. It's about 8 hours away from here. And so we're gonna do that. I might have scheduled a tattoo appointment while I'm there for another one for this arm. So you'll have to stay tuned on that one. The bug has bitten me though, and I'm really enjoying getting some body art. I'm not a big piercings guy, but I really like am into the tattoos. And I have to keep it kind of like, you know, not visible. So I don't know. We'll see. More to come on that. Okay. Oh, one other thing, really important, before I get into knitting, and then I really will get into knitting, and it will be like 45 minutes of knitting. 10th anniversary with Mike is coming up on August 14th. Crazy. I cannot believe we have been together for 10 years. It feels like I've lived like 6 lifetimes since we met and started dating. It's been a wonderful journey with him, and I can't believe it. 10 years. It's crazy because I don't think I've done anything consistently for 10 years except for one thing which I've mentioned in previous podcasts, which I'm not going to go into. You all know. I actually had a anniversary with that while we were away on July 14th. But anyway, so yeah, just really excited about that. It's kind of a cool milestone. I don't know that, like, in our traditional fashion, like, I don't know that we'll do anything with like a huge amount of fanfare. Like probably go get pizza, hang out, watch RuPaul's Drag Race and snuggle. Like nothing too exciting. Okay, so knitting segment. So I promised that I would, in the last episode, if you watched, I think it was actually episode 4, since 5 was with Heather on site at Bliss, that I would do an episode about sweaters. So this is the episode about sweaters. All the sweaters of past, which I've actually finished. There's not that many. I mean, there's like a decent amount. I was actually like kind of surprised when I pulled them together. I was like, oh, there's like more than 1 and there's more than 2. So that's something. So sweaters past, sweaters present. I've got to share this. Like, I've been like obsessed with one of my sweaters present, which I'm sure if you follow me on social media, you're like, I've had it with you and your sweater present. So sweaters present, and then sweaters of future that I want to make and I want to share with you. And in addition to that, one of the things that I wanted to share with you were some of the techniques that I've learned along the way. So, but before I get into all of that, the Neurotic Knitter. So my podcast is called The Neurotic Knitter. I'm generally neurotic, and I'm neurotic about a couple of things when it comes to knitting. Number 1 is color selection. Cassie Monksguard, Tracy Kane, any of my Heather Campbell-Guerin, like all of my close friends know that this is like a part of who I am. Which is to say, like, every time I begin a project, I'm like, what colors am I gonna use? And I like take like 12 zillion pictures, and then I'll text them all to them. And then they'll say like, well, I think I like number 7. And I'm like, thanks for your input. I'm gonna go with number 16. And I mean, like, they're really great about it, and they like know what to expect with me, but it's just one of the ways that I'm neurotic. So there's that neuroses, word. I don't know. There's also sweaters. Sweaters bring out like a particular level of neuroses in me. Sorry, this coffee is really good. Because they've got to fit, you know, a shawl, a hat even, a scarf, a cowl, like all gloves even. I mean, like a lot of knitting stuff, a baby blanket, like all those things, like you can just make them, and it doesn't matter if they turn out like a little short or a little long or a little too big, a little too small. Like, it's fine, you know. You like it's gonna be completely usable. Nobody's gonna ever know. With a sweater, it has to fit. You have to be able to wear it, you know. Otherwise, you've invested a ton of time and energy into something that doesn't look right or doesn't fit or like accentuates like the wrong parts of your body. So I haven't knit a ton of sweaters because I've always feared them. I mean, I finished a couple. I've kind of forced myself to do it. And this past year, I would say I've become really interested in them, and I've been knitting more of them. And I'm trying to, like, it's an area where I'm trying to build some confidence in my knitting skills. Like, I've been knitting for 10 years, and I still have these areas of knitting where I really struggle, or I have fear, or I'm like, I don't know if I can do it, you know? So I'm really trying to overcome that a little bit. Not that it's like some epic struggle or like, you know, some sort of big deal. But it is a part of why I'm like the neurotic knitter, like the sweater thing. And the sizing, you know, the sizing is different. So it's like, my chest is like maybe 41, or it's probably like 40, 41, depending on how much pizza I've eaten. And so it's tough with men. A lot of the men's sizing is like 41 or 45 or 42 to 46. And so it's hard. It's like, do I want to risk it with the 42, which doesn't give me a lot of ease, but probably if I knit a 42, like that's what I would want. If I hit it dead on, like that's what I would go for. Or do I want to go up to the 46 and risk that it looks like too big? I don't like big and sloppy for sweaters. I like a more of a fitted look, but it's got to be like wearable. I don't want to be like skin tight, like gay bar shirt, you know, like it's a sweater. You have to have at least a little room so you can put a shirt underneath it or something. So anyway, okay. So I wanted to start with a couple of techniques and tools about sweaters or about knitting in general, things that I've found to be useful. So one thing is that I've recently rediscovered my love of 16-inch needles, which I had kind of abandoned for a long time. When I first started knitting, I used 16-inch needles a lot, but I have really big hands. And so I was finding that they were really hurting my hands a lot. And so I reverted to the magic loop, and I was doing that for, I really still do use the magic loop a lot for hats and for sleeves and for small circumference knitting. But this most current sweater that I'm working on, which I'll share with you in a moment, has color work in it. And I don't do a lot of color work, but I didn't want to do color work on the magic loop because it would have been really weird and goobery and like, I don't know. I just had worry. I was neurotic about trying to do it that way. So I was like, I'm going to try the 16-inch again. So glad I did it. It really, like, sweaters, especially top-down sweaters, that's where your convertible needle sets come in handy. So like I got the convertible needles to make the 16-inch. I use Chigu, the Chigu metal needles. I have yet to find a needle that is as good for the price. They're like my favorite. But anyway, so I got the 16-inch, and then I was able to switch to the 24, and then, you know, so like as your kind of sweater is growing from the neck down, you're able to change those needles out really easily, and it just makes it like a total breeze. And it was really good for Fair Isle. I got 12-inch needles, which are super short, and they've got these tiny little tips on them. I don't know how that's gonna go. I'm like, fingers crossed, because I've got the sleeves on this Fair Isle sweater are Fair Isle, like throughout the sleeves, which is uncommon because a lot of times it's like just the yoke is Fair Isle and then the sleeves are just straight like stockinette knitting, which I would of course use the magic loop for, but I'm not going to do that for the Fair Isle sleeves. At least I don't think so. But I'm going to give that 12-inch needle a go. So that's tip number one. Maybe think about, you know, using a small circumference needle if you're not comfortable with it. You know, there's kind of pros and cons to it. Number two, the knit purl long tail cast on. So a while back, I put out like a Facebook post about needing a good cast on for the bottom of a sweater that's ribbed. And my good friend Laura Lee Beltman, who many of you know, amazing lady, really good teacher, like wonderful soul, said, have you ever done the knit purl long tail cast on? And I was like, I didn't even know something like that existed. And it does, and it's beautiful. It's really good if you're starting out either a collar or you're doing a bottom up sweater and you're doing it in like knit one purl one or knit two purl two, and you want an edge that's going to be stable, but it's not going to be too loosey-goosey, and it's not going to give you, and you don't want to do just a plain long tail cast on, because when you do a plain long tail cast on, you get that really hard edge all the way around the fabric. And I wanted something that looked kind of more in sync with the ribbing, and this cast on provides that result. I want to give a plug. So There's a woman on YouTube, her name is Nancy Wynn, W-Y-N-N, Nancy Wynn. She does great how-to videos. Between her and Stacey Perry, who's very pink knits, like those two, those are the ones that I always go to for help. Like if you ever need like knitting help videos, those in my opinion are the best. I just discovered Nancy Wynn. She's got a really good one for the knit purl cast on, so you can Google her if you're interested in that cast on, and I would highly recommend it. It's very easy. You have to kind of like think a little bit if you're used to like the autopilot of just the plain knit long tail cast on, but it gives you a really beautiful result. I'll show you in a minute on a couple sweaters that I have here. Third tip, Arnie and Carlos method for catching floats. So in colorwork knitting, sometimes you've got long stretches of one color, and so you need to catch your floats. And I should say, I mean, for those of you who don't know, like colorwork knitting means you're using 2 yarns at the same time. So you're knitting like a few stitches of black and then a few stitches of color and then a few stitches of black and a few stitches of color. Not always black, but you're using 2 colors and you're changing them up throughout the row. So anyway, I had to figure out a way to catch floats, and it had been a while, and I never really had a method that I was satisfied with. And I asked about this, and it was like, I got all kinds of answers and I didn't find any of them to be really satisfactory. A lot of the videos that I've seen out there have you do this really bizarre method where you're like wrapping one yarn around the tip of the needle, and then you're wrapping the other yarn around in the other direction, and then you're wrapping a third time with the, it was so confusing. And it was real cumbersome. It really, like, I knew it was gonna slow me down. So I just did some research on the internet, and Arnie and Carlos actually have a really good, very short video on how they catch their floats. And essentially, excuse me, all it boils down to is them just flipping the non-working yarn over the working yarn. It's really easy. The other thing that I think it prevents, which sometimes you get with these that weird like wrap method, is the yarn showing through. So like when you catch the yarn behind, it pokes through the fabric and you see it on the right side, and that's a problem. Neurotic knitter doesn't like that. Like, you know, if you're looking at the fabric and you can see the little, you know, spots poking through, it doesn't look good. So this Arnie and Carlos method, I have to tell you, I'm going to show you, I'll show it on my sweater in a minute. It's so easy to do, and I have had 0 problem with it showing through. 0. So I highly recommend it. Make your life easy. Like, you don't, you know, and make your knitting look beautiful. Like, I'm plugging the method. I think it's really good. Okay. So 2 other things before I get into some show and tell, which I'm excited about. So 1, I need some recommendations. So like I said, I have a good cast on method, the knit purl cast on. I'm still struggling a little bit with bind off methods. In particular, I'm about to I'll have a 2-2 ribbing along the bottom of my sweater. And I want a really pretty bind off that's not too tight, that's gonna give a good stable edge, and it's not like an I-cord. So if you have any ideas, let me know. I've tried the sewn bind off, kind of like about that one. It's real fussy. It does give a good result, but it's real fussy. So anyway, if you have any recommendations about that. The other thing that I know I'll need help with, that I don't really have good resources on, are how to close the armpit holes on a raglan sweater. Like, I know I'm gonna have those, you know what I'm talking about, like when you do a top down, you've got like the place where you save for the sleeves, and then you end up joining it back together. You end up with these kind of 2 holes usually on each sleeve where the sweater kind of comes together. I need some tips for that. So if you have any resources, I'm really interested in knowing. Last note before show and tell. Knitting community, designers, everybody out there who makes sweaters, we need more guy patterns. I hope this doesn't come off as like me like being a typical male and like ignoring people or, you know, being sexist or anything, but we need men's patterns. Like, and a lot of the patterns that come out for ladies, I would make. And maybe I need to like build my own knitting skills to adapt the pattern for a man, because a lot of them involve like waist shaping and like kind of like female body shaping. But boy, we could really use some more patterns and some nice like Fair Isle patterns, top-down patterns. I've even messaged some designers and just brought this topic up because I think lots of women knit for their husbands, lots of men knit now, so we could really use some patterns. We've got some great folks out there who are doing men's patterns, like Stephen West, of course, does a lot of unisex patterns that are really cool. Brooklyn Tweed, they regularly come out with men's patterns, though I find that those patterns are complicated. They're beautiful. I mean, they're like heirloom pieces, but they're very complicated. They often involve a lot of seaming, a lot of cable work, a lot of fussy techniques. I feel like every single one has a tubular cast on, which I never want to do. So yeah, we could really use like a couple more good patterns. So if you're a designer out there, there's like a gap for men's sweaters right now. Like we could really use some. And cardigans in particular, like, I don't know what the deal is. I'm not a designer, so maybe there's something I don't know about how hard they are to make, but in any event. Okay, so transitioning on to show and tell time. So, first of all, this is not a sweater, but I realized that I don't think I shared my finished Stevie. So I know I've shared this before on podcasts, but I actually like blocked it. And this is the finished result. How cool, right? Amazing. I'm still a delinquent because I need to put fringe on it, but it just turned out so cool. And it just makes me, one, fall in love with marling all over again, because look at that. How cool is that? Really. I mean, I think it's beautiful. And two, you should knit this pattern. Stevie by the Plucky Knitter. Amazing pattern. Really, really fun. Okay, so I want to make sure I show that. I'm going to apply fringe to that pattern. I think I've kind of gone back and forth. Like, there's a part of me that's like, maybe I won't put fringe on there because I kind of like it the way it is. But I don't know. We'll see. On to the sweaters. So we're gonna like take like a walk down memory lane. Super exciting, maybe for some, hopefully for lots of people. And I'm gonna show you these sweaters in the order in which I knit them. So like in my knitting career. And I'll tell you a little bit about the pattern for each of them, and I'll talk a little bit about just like give you like a quick. I'll try not to be too talkative, which I'm not. I fail at that. But anyway, so this is the first sweater I ever knit. Let's see if I can just like hold it up like this. This is it's knit out of Cascade 220. It's a non-superwash. It's obviously a tweedy yarn. It's just like chocolate brown tweed. And the pattern is a knitting pure and simple pattern. I don't recall the name. It's probably something like men's V-neck sweater. I cannot recommend the knitting pure and simple patterns enough for a beginning, like a first sweater. They're really forgiving. They're very clear in directions. This one I remember, you start knitting it flat and then you join it together at the V, then you knit the body, then you pick up for the sleeves. And then you can't really see it, but like I have like a little, there you go, you can kind of see it. There's like a little applied edging around the V. I knit this so this is what happens to me all the time. So like I start out knitting something for me and then Mike's like, oh, that's really nice. I might like to wear that. And then I just cave. So this one, Mike has worn, it's probably like 10 years old. And I feel like for 10 years old, this is looking pretty good. I mean, it's a little stretched out, but I'm telling you, the Cascade 220, I know they're like a subject of controversy right now, so maybe I shouldn't be talking about them. Or they were like a few weeks ago. But it wears like iron. Like, I don't really knit with this yarn anymore, but I'm very happy with the product. I feel also like this was like when I was like super stressed all the time when I was knitting because I was new and I wanted it to be like perfect. So I'm sure my gauge was like way tight. But anyway, brown sweater, knitting pure and simple, probably like men's V-neck. You can also see this on my Ravelry page. Okay, so then I jumped in and I decided I wanted to do something with cables, and I wanted to make a big old, like, chunky knit sweater. So I made this one. This one is called Aidez. I think that's how you say it. It's A-I-D-E-Z. See, there's some cables on it. There's some cables on the sleeve. I should show you the back. Yeah, there's like a lattice panel on the back. And it's got this kind of like collar here that's got some cabling on it. And then there's like little froggy loops. It didn't actually call for buttons, but I wanted to have buttons, so I made little froggy loops. And then I got these really cool, like kind of almost like cordovan colored leather buttons. Funny story is, we were on vacation in San Francisco, like probably, this one's probably about 8 years old. And I made Mike go with me to Britex Fabrics, which is a big old fabric and notion store in San Francisco, to help pick out the buttons. You know what's funny about this sweater? Oh, and the yarn is Barocco Peruvia Quick. So it's super chunky yarn. And the colorway is, I think, called Bing Cherry. Sorry, just trying to make sure you can see all of it. The funny thing about this sweater is Stephen West made it, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta make that. And I wanna make like the exact one he made. So I did. And after I finished making it, I realized that I just didn't like it. So I made this sweater, and it's like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's so hot. It's unbelievably hot. Like, this fabric, this yarn, it's just not a good match for me. The sweater is beautiful. I'm glad I made it. I pull it out every once in a while, and I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. But I almost never wear it because it's so hot and it's real scratchy. So anyway, I'm complaining, but like, that's like, out of all the sweaters I made, like, that's the one where I'm like, meh. But the pattern was fun. It was fun. The only issue I had with that one is, again, it's a sweater that is designed for a lady. There wasn't like a lot of shaping in it, but the shoulders were real narrow. I have really broad shoulders, so it just, it feels a little tight sometimes when I wear it, on the very few occasions that I wear it. Okay, so the next one, this is one I really like, and I wear this one like pretty often. So this one is Cobblestone. It's knit, it's by Jared Flood from Brooklyn Tweed. It's very simple, as you can see. You knit a stockinette body, and you can't really see, maybe if I put it close you can see, yeah, there you go. You knit a stockinette body, and you knit this kind of very cool garter yoke. I really want to make this again, actually, because, and it's got like a garter hem, which I probably would do a little different, though it looks really good with you have like garter in the, this is hard, guys, because I want to show you the details here, but it's difficult to do. But you've got like garter in the side panel. This colorway, oh, I miss it so much. It was Madeline Tosh years and years ago. It was a colorway called Bark. And I just love it. It's just like Madeline Tosh at her best, where she's got like those like dark and bright spots. And let me tell you about this sweater. So it's made out of Tosh Vintage in the colorway Bark, like I said. And I should just like put them up here so you can see. So Tosh Vintage, colorway bark. This is where I learned about dye lots and alternating skeins. So I was knitting on this, and this poor like sweater was like tortured because, or the yarn was tortured, I should say, because I like was knitting along and I was like, oh, these look pretty similar. I'm not gonna alternate. These look similar. So I like knit. And I was like, I remember I was in an airport traveling for work, and I looked down and I'm like, whoa, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like it was like very clear, like line, dark, light, like you could totally tell. So I had to rip it all back and do that thing where you kind of like alternate for a little while, that whole thing. Good time to talk about alternating skeins. I still, even after that, I'm still very like, don't want to do it. And here's why. You get like a weird, everybody's like, you just have to practice your tension, it's fine. It's not fine, it never turns out right. You get like a weird column of stitches. It's real wonky. You got one that's small, one that's big. If you try to, you know, be too loose, then the stitches end up loose. And you also end up with a weird like thick fabric because you've got the yarn strands carrying behind it. I just don't like doing it. I will do it if I have to, but I do everything in my power to try to not do it because I hate doing it. It doesn't always work out well for me because I love like indie dye yarns, which means like there's variation. Somebody told me, Josh Ricks Rubinski, I should say, told me one thing that one of his colleagues does or friends does is in those situations, wind up all the skeins. That's actually a really good tip too. Like if you're ever unsure about whether your dye lots match or your colors match, you gotta wind them up. And for a long time I resisted that. I'm like, but what, I wanna keep it in a beautiful hank. Like what if I don't need it? No, just whatever you have to use, wind it up. If you end up with a ball of yarn wound up that you don't end up using, make a hat. When in doubt, make a hat. Or just throw it back in the stash in a ball, it's gonna be okay. But wind them up because that's where you can really see, it looks different in the hank. You can't tell. You've got to unwind it, you've got to wind it into a ball, and then you have to place them together. I'm a huge fan of the black and white feature, so that's a good way to tell contrast. But what Josh said was, which I thought was really good, excuse me, is in places where you do have some variation, place them in like light to dark order or dark to light order and knit them that way. So that way it'll be more subtle, and it might even look like you intended to do it that way. Like you were like, oh yeah, I was kind of just going for like a soft gradient effect. And it'll minimize, like, you know, if you didn't really put that planning into it, you might end up doing your darkest skein and then your lightest skein next, and you're definitely gonna see the contrast. But if you try to put them in the order, maybe nobody will notice. So anyway, yeah, alternating skeins. I don't like it. Okay, next one. This is number 4, so there's 5 total. 5 total finished ones, and then I'm gonna talk some more about some of the ones on my needles, and then some of my prospective, like future ones. This is one of the ones I love the most. Actually, the last 2 are like 2 that I really, really like. So this is one that I knit last year. I think, was it last year? No, it was the year before that. I think I finished it in 2016. Anyway, this pattern is called Spearheads. Isn't that cool? I love this so much. And it's from Brooklyn Tweed. And it's a really fun pattern. The only thing that is kind of, I'm gonna complain a little bit for a minute. Doesn't this look good on me though? Of course I gave it to Mike. Brooklyn Tweed, sometimes they're like, the length of their body is like so long. Like this was like a bottom up, and it just ended up being, it's like really big. Like Mike is not a, he's not a super tall guy. He's like 5'9", which is like kind of average height, maybe a little shorter for a guy, but I just find it funny that patterns don't provide you with information about how to do the lengthwise sizing that you would like. Like, I've actually run into this in some of the patterns I've knit over the years, like, you know, why aren't they giving you some information about how to actually measure the yoke, like where to go on your body, versus, you know, just knit 10 inches, or on the body section, it's like knit to, you know, if you're knitting bottom up, it's saying knit to 15 inches, knit to 18 inches, knit to 45 inches, whatever it is. I wish that there'd be more about how to like figure out with your anatomy, like how to size these things, because I think there's an assumption that people know and they don't know. And some people are neurotic and like directions and want to like follow the pattern, you know. But anyway, I love this. This is knit out of Quarry, Brooklyn Tweed Quarry. Quarry's like one of my favorite yarns. It's so funny because I talked a moment ago about that red sweater, which was kind of scratchy and real heavy. Quarry is the opposite. And it's interesting because it is a rustic yarn. It's actually not a single ply yarn. It's a really, I'll tell you more about the yarn in a minute, but it's rustic, and it feels when you knit it like it could be, like it might be scratchy, but it blocks beautifully. Like, I cannot say enough about how nice it is. It's not cashmere, it's not super soft, but what you trade, you know, you're making a trade-off here. So like the cashmere, yes, is nice, but cashmere can kind of like stretch out. It can get real fuzzy and pilly easily. This is so durable, and it softens beautifully. The Quarry yarn is interesting. It's basically like 3 very unspun kind of plies put to like twisted together. It's a really interesting and cool yarn to work with. It's very delicate, so you actually have to have a really soft hand when you knit with it. But I cannot say enough about how much I love it, and the colors are fabulous. So anyway, Spearheads, really good pattern and super easy. Like, would be a really good beginner Fair Isle pattern for people if people were interested in that, in kind of taking on Fair Isle. And it goes really quickly. It'll knit fast because it's on like size 11 needles, because it's chunky yarn. Spearheads, really good pattern. Okay, last of my finished knits. I made this one in January. I finished it in January. I knit it in like a month, which for me, that's fast, because I'm a slow knitter. So sorry, coffee break. And this is called Marled Mania. It's by Stephen West. How awesome is this? I freaking love this sweater. I really love it. I definitely am gonna like wear the crap out of this. I wore it a bunch of times this past year. It's top down, which I love because you could try it on as you go. Top down is really like my #1 favorite. You've got this kind of cool little mock neck going on. And you're holding 2 fingering weight yarns together, and you're doing a ribbed yoke, which is actually like super nice. Like, it's very flattering. Women ran into problems with this pattern, so if you're a lady, I think you're gonna want to be careful, because I think some people had problems about like where the ribbing hits you. So, you know, be mindful of that. Although you can try it on as you go. So I think it's a good one for that. But for a man, it's really nice. It's a very flattering look for a man, I think. And what I did is I used, so for the top I used Plucky Knitter Primo Fingering, which is one of my favorites. Morticia and Urban are my colors. I mean, look at that, how cool. How cool is that? I think very cool. And then I used a bunch of assorted stash yarn. So you can see that you're knitting a reverse stockinette. This is the purl side. How cool. I love it. I just picked kind of rainbowy, approximately rainbow colors. I used Madeline Tosh Merino Light. I used Woolen Boon Classic. I used Plucky Knitter. And I used another Crafty Girl, like deep deep cut stash I had from like 2012 or something. And it just turned out amazing. And there's some nice little details, like you've got like a little I-cord cuffy, which I love, and on the bottom you've got I-cord. And it was just really enjoyable. Like I really like hit a stride with this one. And I love marling. I think it's such a beautiful technique, and it really shows off all your great speckly yarns. And it was just really fun. I had a great time making it. What was I going to tell you about this? Oh, so one thing that I learned from Steven, that I did not employ in this pattern, but I would plan to employ in other patterns like this, is you can imagine that you're going to have a gazillion ends to weave in. And I'm just going to be honest, my friend Keith Leonard, Knits All Done. For those of you who are not aware, he has a finishing service, and he'll finish knits, and he helped me with my ends because there were like a billion, and I was just like, I can't. So I sent it away, and Keith helped me like weave all the ends in. But what Steven mentioned, which I thought was a really good idea, is you can, so in this pattern you're working with two colors held together to make your marl, right? And you're, generally speaking, you're gonna like drop one and then bring in another to kind of give it like a fadey effect. So rather than dropping the one, knit with three. So knit with your two old ones and your new one for like 3 to 5 stitches together, and then just snip out that one that you're gonna cast aside. I was like, that's like a pretty good idea, right? Because then you don't have to weave the end in. You can just, you're gonna have like maybe a little section in your sweater that might feel like a little thicker, but it's not going to be noticeable. And in particular in a sweater like this, where it's like there's a lot going on, you're not going to be able to tell, and it saves you from having to weave all those ends in. So anyway, another technique. This podcast is filled with gems, you guys. So anyway, so yeah, Marled Mania by Stephen West. Loved it. Really good knit. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. Great directions, really easy to follow. Okay. I have a precariously stacked mountain of sweaters like underneath the tripod. I feel like that was like a terrible decision, but okay. Sweaters in progress. So, number one, I have to share. By the way, I got this cute little bag from Mike for my birthday. It has little grapefruits on it. It's from Bagoo. I love these bags. Some people hate these. I really like them for knitting because they're huge. You can use them like for a grocery bag too. But see, they're huge. I mean, you can fit all your stuff, and then just to close it up, I just tie it together. I don't know, non-scientific. But I like it. Oh my God, this sweater, you guys. So this is my obsession of the moment. It is called the Guthrie sweater. I have to make sure that it looks good before I show you all. Holy moly. I hope it was worth the wait to see this beauty. Sorry, I'm like being kind of like arrogant with my own knitting, but oh my God, it's so nice. Look at that. Oh. So I'm almost to the part where I'm going to do like the bottom ribbing, which is why I asked that question. This pattern is called Guthrie. It's by Caitlin Hunter, otherwise known as Boylan's Knitworks on Ravelry and on social media. I mean, look at this. Look at, love it. So the yarn I used Madeline Tosh DK for the black in colorway Onyx, and for the Fair Isle section I used House of Alamode. Love her. And it's part of the glitter collection. It's called Glitter Storm, so it's like a dark gray. It kind of, you can tell that overall it kind of reads grayish with these speckles, and it's like there's just so much detail and rainbow and just amazingness happening with these speckles, you guys. I just can't take it. But I can take it because I'm going to wear the crap out of this at Rhinebeck. So a couple notes about this pattern. And I'm not a hater, but here's my thing. I feel like we all have different talents in life. Like, you know, like I have talents, I have things I'm good at and not good at. My perspective is in the knitting world, sometimes there are folks who are really, really good at creative vision for a pattern, but not as good. Not to say that they're bad, but not as good on the pattern writing portion. I really struggled with this pattern from a gauge perspective. The directions are very clear. The pattern is a beautiful pattern. The gauge was nuts. Like, I don't know who's getting this gauge. The gauge was 21 stitches and 28 rows using DK weight yarn on a size 4 needle. Size 4. I'm not getting that gauge. And I think probably 90% of people are not getting that gauge. So, you know, it is what it is. But it was a little bit of a struggle to get to get myself comfortable, because the other thing is I'm the neurotic knitter. So like I had some uncomfortable moments because I was like, I'm so far out. Like I'm just like, I'm in no man's land with this gauge. Like she's saying to knit it on a 4, I'm on like an 8, and I'm still tight. Like I'm still not getting 21 stitches over 4 inches. So I just went with it. I ended up, I want to show you, I started on a 6 because I thought, okay, maybe I'll get on a 6. I was like way off. I think I got like 25 stitches over 4 inches on the 6. I mean, it looks pretty. The fabric is pretty dense. So then I went up to an 8, and I got, you know, I think I got a good fabric. I would not be comfortable going, you know, any more than an 8 because it's DK weight yarn. I mean, the nice part about it is you've got your Fair Isle floats, so that's giving it like a little bit of substance behind the fabric, so it's not totally like cheesecloth. But here's the importance of swatching, guys, right? I mean, like, obviously on a 6 and an 8 you're gonna get 2 different fabrics, but important also in this pattern because no one's getting 21 inches on a size 4. I would probably end up getting like 27 stitches per inch on a size 4 if I were to have started there. Anyway, I'm not going to complain about it because I love it. So what I did is I got to the 8. I was still a little bit under, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do one size up. I'm going to risk it, and I feel like I'm kind of in the neighborhood of sizing. There may have been a spreadsheet involved. But I got it, and that's what I did, and I feel like it's gonna fit, so I'm really pumped about it. I'm gonna work on the body a little bit more today, and I'm going to then start the sleeves using that 12-inch needle. And oh, I was gonna show you, sorry, I want to make sure that I don't like have it fall off the needles, but this is what my inside looks like. And there's a couple places, I don't know if you can see them. Let me see if I can point one out. Here. I don't know if you can really see it, but I use that Arnie and Carlos float technique in here. And I think the inside of the fabric looks really good. And I implore you to look at that black fabric and see a spot where that gray shows through, because it doesn't. You cannot see it. Really. So I'm telling you, that Arnie and Carlos float catching technique, really, really, really good. Anyway, Guthrie. So that's my like obsession of the moment for sure. And hopefully I'll have that done in the next, I don't know, a couple weeks, 2 weeks, maybe less than that. Kangaroo rollover. I've showed that in previous podcasts. That's still in progress. I actually need to get a little bit of help, so I'm going to bring that one to Nashville and see if my friends at Bliss Yarns in Nashville will help me with that one. And then the final one that's in progress, sorry, I got a lot of stuff down here, has been in progress for a while, not for any particular reason, just because I keep getting distracted, but I really do like it. It's the Tamarack cardigan. It's by Brooklyn Tweed, and I'm knitting it, this is Corey again, and it's a cardigan sweater. It's both for men and for women. It's a little bit longer. It's meant to kind of more be like a kind of like a coat length sweater. For ladies, they have like a option to install like a cute little belt, which I think is a really like a super flattering look on a lady, like to have the kind of the waist detail. And just in case you're aware, wondering what I thought. And you can see that it's just wonderfully textured. I'm using this color called hematite, which is like this beautiful kind of red, dark red, purpley color with these little bright red flecks, which you can see. I use that Nancy Wynn cast on. See? Isn't that pretty? I think that's really, really a beautiful cast on. And it kind of just blends right into the ribbing. So I feel like that's a good one. So Tamarack. I need to get this going again. I don't know. I keep getting distracted, which is a common thing for me when it comes to knitting. So I hope that I'll get this done for Rhinebeck, but I think that might be a tall order. For reasons I'm going to explain in a moment. But Tamarack, out of Corey, amazing. Okay. So those were, I showed you sweaters of the past, finished ones, sweaters of the present. I should note, because I know I'm going to have people be like, I know you have 10 more sweaters cast on. Yeah, probably, somewhere in there. But you know what? Don't care. Those are the two I'm working on right now. So, love it or hate it, that's the thing. Okay, so there are now 4 sweaters that I want to make that I'm going to share with you. In the future, I'm probably going to print out pictures. I just didn't have it in me today to do that. And I'm trying to podcast a little early today so I can like beat the summer heat because it's going to be a zillion degrees up here in a minute. But I am going to try to show you some different things here so you can kind of imagine with me what these things could look like. So the first one I'm going to do, probably following this one, is called Brioche Breeze. Brioche Breeze. And it's by Stephen West. I think that this pattern divides the nation. Not really. It doesn't really divide the nation. But when I said I was going to knit this, people are like, are you going to knit brioche? Like, I feel like brioche is kind of a divisive topic. Like, some people really like it. Some people think it sucks because it takes like, you basically have to knit like twice as much to get the same result. But the result is amazing. I'm still like a little nervous about like my wherewithal and like whether I'll like finish. But when I was in Nashville a few weeks ago, Ayana Gray, who's a knitter in Nashville, really lovely young lady. She was making one and it was so gorgeous. I was like, I have to make this sweater. I have to do it. One thing I wanted to mention is I'm really new to brioche. I don't think I've even really ever done it. I think I may have done a form of brioche one time, long time ago on a scarf, and I think that's it. I've had no experience. So I got a book at my local bookstore called Knitting Fresh Brioche. It's by Nancy Marchant. She's like the brioche savant. Like, she's the one who I think like brought it back to life. This is a beautiful book, by the way. It has all kinds of like lovely brioche patterns in it. But most importantly, it has a very well done section in the beginning of the book that gives you very clear details. Like, and I'm neurotic, so you can believe me on this. Really clear details on how to do the stitches. And that's what I was really looking for with this book to start with, is like, I just wanted some good solid instruction. I didn't want to like count on like a YouTube video or YouTube channel. I would love to take a class on this sometimes, and I know people like Lavanya, Patriella, and obviously Nancy Marchant, like, and probably Stephen West and others teach on this a lot. So it's in my plan. It's like one of those things that I would actually like want to take a class on. But anyway, knitting fresh brioche. I got it at Barnes & Noble, so I feel like your local bookstore will probably have this. Really, really great resource. Anyway, so I picked colors for it. So in the pattern, it's like an open cardigan. It's kind of oversized, and it's got all these beautiful stripes and textures in it. And Stephen recommends using a non-superwash wool to give the garment structure, as well as to keep it from growing too much, because sometimes, excuse me, in brioche knitting, the fabric can grow and it can get kind of, I don't know what the word is. It can stretch out, because in brioche knitting you're using a lot of yarn overs and you're knitting them together, but there are lots of places in the knitting where you've got yarn overs, and so that creates like, it's a little bit less structured than normal. So what I've decided is I'm going to try to show this to you, but it's probably not going to go very like smoothly. So I'm going to use this beautiful Shelter, which is a non-superwash wool. It's the worsted weight yarn from Brooklyn Tweed. It's in colorway Soot. It's like a dark charcoal gray. I'm going to use this as my main color, and then I'm going to see if I can do this. This is probably going to fail, but I'm going to try anyway. And then I'm just going to use like a bunch of beautiful rainbow, like neon pops of color. Okay, so I'm using these ones. Bright, fun, cheery colors. And then I've got some more like these guys and this guy to round it out. It's approximately a rainbow, spending a little bit more time in places that I really like I love blue and green, so I've got a little bit more there. I might add a little bit though. When I looked the other day, when I looked at kind of the progression of colors that I had, I really liked it. And one thing that I'm excited about with a pattern like this is I can use stash. Like there's no need for me to buy any more yarn here. So I already had the Brooklyn Tweed. You can mix up, and it's actually probably a good idea with brioche to give it structure and stability, to mix it up. I'm going to be using, you can use a mix of like worsted and DK weights. So I'm going to use some snug worsted. I'm going to use, oops, I knew that was going to happen. Some hedgehog merino DK. I'm using some Tosh DK. I think this one is maybe Tosh Vintage. This is another snug worsted. I'm going to use this one that I've had for a long time that I love. It's from Squish Fiber Arts. It's their Ultra DK. I got this at Eat Sleep Knit like a bazillion years ago. So I'm just going to use like a bunch of stuff I have to make that sweater, and I think it's going to be fabulous. I might get a couple more colors. I don't exactly know what those colors would be. Maybe another orange, maybe another red, and maybe like a hot pink. But really, like, I'm kind of aiming for like bright, colorful, like rainbow. Just if it looks kind of like a Technicolor Dreamcoat, like I'm into it, and I'm excited to start it. I think I'm excited to learn the brioche. I think it'll be fun. And the pattern is really, I've had an opportunity to read the pattern. I think it's a really good pattern. The construction is not like super difficult, so I'm pumped about that. And I think it'll be like another piece that I can wear at Rhinebeck. And I'm excited because like, you guys probably are aware now that I've mentioned it several times without actually saying it. I'm going to Rhinebeck this fall for the first time. And as everybody knows, sweaters, you've got to show up with a sweater. So I'm gonna have the Marled Mania, which I'll bring, the Guthrie, which I just showed you, the color work one, and then maybe this Brioche Breeze. I feel like that's like pretty solid for like a first Rhinebeck. Okay, so 3 other sweaters that I want to share with you, and I'll try to be quick as we wrap up today. It's really good to be with you guys. number one is, or so this is the second one. So I showed you Brioche Breeze. Another West Knits one. So Steven came out with a pattern this week called the West Knits Go-To Raglan. So cool. And just like a basic raglan sweater. I mean, it's nothing too fancy, but a couple things distinguish it. Number one, he's done this really cool collar treatment that I want to try, which is basically like a folded hem collar. I mean, you're basically knitting like a 1x1 rib for like maybe this long. Then you're folding it over and you're kind of knitting two together all the way around to make like a thick rib. And he did it in like a striking color. Like his was like construction orange, like bright, you know, around the collar. And then it's marled throughout. And then he did these long sleeves, and you can do like an optional thumb hole thing. So yeah, I'm gonna do one of those. I haven't decided exactly like what my color palette will be. Two things I'm thinking about. One is maybe using some gradient colors from the Plucky Knitter that I have from a kit that that I might use. I might also just ask Karen Posniak at Do You Knit for some help when I go to visit in a couple weeks, and just like get yarn pimped and like help her pick like some fun bright ones for me. So I'm gonna make that. Two more. The Oxbow cardigan from Andrea Mowry. That's more of a rustic, chunky weight cardigan. It's very similar, I think, in a lot of ways to the Tamarack that I showed you out of that beautiful red. This guy, I think it's similar. It has a different textured stitch, but it is also knit out of quarry, and it's just an open cardigan. And I find that lately I've been wanting cardigans more because it's so cold in my office that I want to be able to wear them. So Oxbow cardigan. I think that was part of a book, and it just became available as a single purchase pattern. Oxbow on Ravelry. The final one is by Caitlin Hunter. She also made the Guthrie pattern, which I'm working on. It's called Umpqua. U-M-P-Q-U-A. Umpqua. And it's just a beautiful, simple kind of Fair Isle yoke and then solid body sweater. I think that one's going to be for Mike, maybe for Christmas. He's been eyeing it, and so I've got to make it for him. So I think that might be it for today. Thanks for hanging in there with me, guys. Really, really excited. I think that I'm going to try to podcast again, probably maybe after Do You Knit. Like maybe I'll show you like live from New Jersey, like a little bit about my haul. I'm going to try to podcast a little bit more often. So stay tuned. Thanks for the continued support. And as always, please let me know if there's anything that you'd like to see on the podcast. I'm very open to suggestions and ideas. And just love you guys. Thank you all for the support and the love over the last couple weeks. And stay tuned for future podcasts. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Here comes the part. See, every time, guys, this silly little remote fails me. So I'm going to sit here for a minute and try to figure it out. You're free to go if you want. Okay, I think it's going to work now. Bye, everybody. Have a great Saturday.